Well, let's talk about fear, something we've all experienced at one time or another. I feel that way every April 15th. Never know what's going to happen, no matter what I choose for my deductions. Somehow I never win. But that's not the fear I'm talking about today. Today it's speech anxiety. And this is, or stage fright. Many people call it stage fright. And of course, this is what just about everyone in the world who ever gets up to give a speech experiences once in a while. Now, with everything, there is a name. And this particular fear is called glossophobia. There it is right there on the slide. And glossophobia is Greek. There's lots of phobias, and they all have Greek names. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Herpophobia, the fear of snakes. Claustrophobia, the fear of enclosed spaces. On and on and on. And glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking. It actually, if you break it's two Greek words making a compound word. Phobia meaning fear, and glosso meaning tongue. So it quite literally means the fear of the tongue. Go figure. But anyway, make sure you know that word. Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. And many, many people experience this. Why? Okay, there's a lot of reasons why we get so nervous. And boy, what I'm about to say applies to just about any situation. And it's uncertainty. When we're uncertain about a situation, about the future, about whatever it might be, we experience fear or anxiety. And with public speaking, it has a kind of specific uh, uh, byproduct that I'll show you here in just a second. But some of the uncertainties that you might experience, the uncertainty of why you're the speaker. Now, in a class like this, that's probably not an issue. You know that you're here as a student and that you have certain assignments that you need to complete, all of which are about speaking, so you know what your role is. But you might be asked someday at work to give a talk about some new procedure at work or whatever, and you may be wondering, well, why are they asking me? Well, this is an easy fix. If you're ever asked to give a speech and you don't know why it's you, just go talk to somebody. Find out. Get rid of that uncertainty. All right, your abilities as a speaker. Now, I think this particular uncertainty creates a great deal of anxiety. People just think, well, I can't do it. I don't speak well. I speak too fast. I have an accent. I People don't understand me. Whatever it might be. All of these are correctable. You have to convince yourself that you will be understood. The best way I can recommend that you overcome this speaking ability issue is take out your phone, put it down in front of you, and hit record. Oh, everybody loves that, don't they? But record yourself. Listen to yourself and think about, well, I could do this a little bit differently. I need to slow down. I need to make sure I'm pronouncing my words. People can get past accents. There was a delightful little story from the Democratic National Convention. It's a 9-year-old boy who likes Joe Biden, and he gave a little speech. And one of the reasons he gave it is because he stutters, and he wanted to show that Joe Biden, who also has suffered from stuttering through his life, can overcome that. So people are a lot more forgiving than you might imagine. So please, don't worry too much about your speaking ability. More than anything, uh, practice by recording yourself and listening to yourself. You have to do that. And you'd be amazed how easy it is to eliminate this uncertainty. Your ideas. I'm not sure about my ideas. Well, again, let's say I keep going back to the work scenario. You're asked at work to give a talk about something new in the company or whatever it might be. You're not really sure you know yourself. What you gonna do? You're gonna go to your computer and go Google? Yes. In other words, learn all you can about your topic so that you feel comfortable. I always tell people, make sure you know more than you can possibly talk about, because that way you will have self-confidence that you, if not an expert, I'm not asking anybody to be an expert, but that you will at least feel comfortable with whatever your topic might be. And of course, the audience response. That's the one I think most people worry about the most, not even the abilities. How are people going to respond to me? Are they going to think I look funny? Are they going to think I sound funny? Did I get that piece of lettuce out of my teeth before I gave the speech? The audience response. Well, again, I mentioned it just a little bit in the last lecture, that you need to look at your audience and see what kind of feedback you're getting from them. Are you getting back some kind of, they're bored or not interested? Look for that feedback so that you can understand what the audience response is. And of course, uh, some of the other, the setting, where you have to give the speech, you might not even think about that, but in fact, can be a pretty big deal. And so, if you're giving a speech somewhere, if you're giving a talk somewhere, any kind of presentation, but you don't know, it's like, I've never even been in this place. Go again, eliminate the uncertainty. Go check out the room before you have to give the presentation. Technology. God, this has been the bane of my wife and myself, our very existence for the last few weeks. We're both okay with computers, but not as savvy as many of you might be or others. And so technology can be a real bugaboo when you go out to try to give a speech. Once again, it's just like with the setting. Make sure there's someone there who can turn on the projector for you if you're doing PowerPoint or Prezi or something. Or make sure that microphone works. Try it to see what it sounds like in the room. Don't let the technology be your enemy. Let it be your friend, if such a thing can happen. And then, of course, there's the evaluation. Uh, the audience feedback is one kind of evaluation, really, it is. But for this class in particular, I'm going to provide you with a copy of the rubric. I have rubrics for each of the presentations that I'll be using as I watch your videos, and then I'll send it to you. And you'll know ahead of time exactly what I'm looking for and how your speech will be evaluated. I want to eliminate that uncertainty, so we can get rid of that one. The point here is get rid of as much of the uncertainty as you can, and the stress level, the anxiety level will go down. Easy to say, isn't it? When it boils right down to it, what are we most afraid of? Judgment. We think people are going to judge us, but most of the time, I think you would be surprised. People are genuinely interested in what you have to say, and they are willing to listen to you if you present well. So uh, eliminate these uncertainties, and I think you'll feel so much better about what you're doing. All right, fight or flight, speech anxiety, stage fright. As I say on the slide, this is a real physical process. This is something that happens in your body, whether you want it to or not. You cannot stop it from happening. Now, you can understand it and control it. But when you get nervous, certain things happen in your body that will affect your ability to stand up and talk. All right, so the thing that you have to understand is that this will happen. You will have this kind of physical response no matter what. It's just going to happen. So let me elucidate. All right, back in the middle of the 19th century, this guy right here, Charles Darwin, the man who wrote the book on evolution, went to the London Zoo, and he went into the snake house, the herpetoриum, and he found the case with the deadliest snake he could find, the swamp adder, who knows, some really bad snake, you know. And Darwin, of course, the snake's in this case, and there's a piece of glass in front. Darwin apparently leaned over and he tapped on the glass. And he tapped on the glass until that snake got really irritated and it launched himself at Darwin. Darwin knew there was a piece of glass there and that the snake couldn't hurt him. But what happened? Oh, he flinched. He went back. And he tried it several times. And every time that snake would lunge at him, he would flinch. I think eventually the guard told him to go away and leave the snake alone. But the point is that Darwin was quite certain that this is uh, an instinctive uh, part of our makeup to react to fearful situations. Well, today we know that there's even more to it than a simple reaction. When you go into what's known as fight or flight, you have to decide, am I going to stand my ground or am I going to turn around and get out of there in order to live and fight another day? Well, things happen. Somewhere in your brain, the hippocampus, which I believe is somewhere down here in the brain, goes into action when you're in a stressful situation. First thing that happens is that it secretes or releases this hormone known as ACTCH. ATCH stimulates the adrenal or adrenaline gland. Get the right gland here. The adrenaline gland way down in your kidneys. When that happens, you get an adrenaline rush. We've all had an adrenaline rush, and it's this sudden burst of nervous energy that allows us to do things that normally we wouldn't do under different circumstances. I've heard stories of people coming across car accidents where someone's trapped inside and they go over and they just rip the door right off the car. That's the adrenaline rush. Well, when you come up to give a speech, you're going to have an adrenaline rush. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you know it's going to happen, you can use that burst of energy to help you give a more positive, powerful expression to what you're saying, but you can't let it overpower you. So the adrenaline rush will happen, absolutely. And the next thing is posture. Now, I'm sitting down in a chair. This is a little harder to demonstrate, but when you go into fight or flight, you want to go into kind of a defensive position, and your shoulders come forward, and you stoop a little bit to kind of protect yourself and become defensive. This is called a posture or position of low power. You might even feel like, oh, forget the defensive position. I'm going to go all the way into the fetal position, all curled up. I'm so nervous. So this is another aspect of fight or flight. So you want to try to stand up, keep both straight, keep both feet on the floor, and present in a position of power. This is called a position of power. I would encourage you, and when I give my actual demonstration presentations, I'm going to stand up and not sit down in a chair. I would highly encourage you to stand up to give your presentations. Oh, there's more. Have you ever had that feeling of butterflies in your stomach? Okay, that's because when you get really stressed, when anxiety takes over, the digestive system shuts down, especially in your stomach, of course. It just shuts down. And that's because the body wants to pump more blood to your brain and other parts of your body that need it for fight or flight. So don't eat the big burrito. Don't eat a big meal just before you have to give a talk. I learned that a long, long time ago. I used to actually be asked to come and speak to groups, at dinner meals. Oh, just dreadful for everybody. But I kind of enjoyed it. But I learned very quickly that I didn't eat the food, and I always was worried I'd insult someone, but I didn't eat before I talked. I might pick at my salad or something like that, but I never did that. I've told my students, don't eat before you come into class, before you give your speech. So yeah, I had a young lady who forgot or didn't believe me, whatever. And it was a 1:30 class right after lunch, and she had been to Taco Bell, and she did eat that big burrito. And she got up to the podium and she stood there. She didn't say a word. You could just tell she was becoming sick. And after a moment, she just ran for the door because her digestive system shut down. All that food was sitting in there, and she got sick to her stomach. Another reason to not, well, that is the reason not to eat before you give a presentation. Something you probably might not even think about. Another thing to remember is uh, don't drink sweet cola, for example. The sugar will kind of glom up your voice. Don't drink a big glass of milk. Same reason. If you need to drink something, drink a little coffee or tea, water, obviously, but stay away from anything with sugar in it, because that will affect your speaking ability. So the oxygen and the blood are rushing from your digestive system to other parts of your body. You feel sick to your stomach. You feel those butterflies in your stomach. Oh my goodness. But wait, there's more. Oh, don't go away. Even your eyes change. When you get really nervous, your eyes dilate. And when they do that, oh, let's see, it must be 3:30. Your eyes dilate, and it makes it harder to see things that are close up. Uh, there's speculation that your eyes do that because when the pupil of your eyes dilates, you can see distant objects more sharply than you can when they're not dilated. The problem is when they dilate, you can't see close up as well. Uh, some people have suggested this was so you could see the saber-toothed tiger that was about to eat you alive uh, better at a distance before it got there, I suppose. So what do? Well, for the first assignment, I'm going to suggest that you print out your text in fairly large print. And again, I have scanned examples that I'll post for you to look at. Even though you may be 19 years old and your eyesight is great, when you get nervous, if you're trying to work from an outline that's 8-point type, you're going to have a hard time seeing it. I don't care how good your eyes are. So you want to make the print as big as you can that you're comfortable with, so that you don't have to constantly look down at your paper. So even that is something that you need to think about. So it's a real physical event that your body goes through, fight or flight. That's the speech anxiety. It will happen. So you know it's going to happen. You can try to accommodate uh, yourself in ways that, if you know your mouth is going to get really dry, that's part of it. Keep a bottle of water nearby. It's okay to take a sip of water once in a while. Better that than choke up. You know that you're going to be anxious and your breathing's going to change. I'll talk about that in just a second. So as long as you know it's going to happen, you can take measures to mitigate or even eliminate some of that problem. And here we go. First thing you can do to manage your speech anxiety is maintain a positive attitude. And you're thinking, yeah, Ray, I'm positive I'm going to get up and screw it up. Not that positive attitude. Positive attitude that you've practiced it enough, that you're comfortable with the material, that you know you can get up and do it. You've eliminated as much uncertainty as possible, and you are going to have this positive attitude. And that will really, really help your presentation. Now, I have on the slide here visualization, and it's not quite what you might think. I'm going to visualize them in my happy place. I've got that on the slide there. I'm going to be in a happy place. No, it means that a couple of things. One, when you're preparing your speech, that you think about the physical aspects of the speech. Where am I going to be standing? How am I going to deal with my notes? Think about, visualize what you're doing before you do it. That's visualization. And once again, because we're not doing this in a classroom, but normally I would say when you're up at a podium, you also need to think about what you're doing physically. You have to visualize what you are doing physically as you stand there. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't rock back and forth as you're talking. Make sure that you know what you're doing with your body while you're speaking. That's visualization. And then relaxation. There's some breathing techniques, and boy, breathing is absolutely the all-important aspect. Breathing's good, And when you get nervous, what happens to your breathing? You start breathing in quickly and uncomfortably. And the way you want to breathe, and I don't know if I can do this successfully, is you don't want to breathe from your upper chest. Now, if you take a deep breath, watch my shoulders as I breathe. See my shoulders come up? I did that all wrong. I'm breathing wrong. If you do that, you're not getting a whole lot of air into your lungs. You want to breathe from your diaphragm, as you can see on the slide there. And let me try something. I'm going to stand up. You can see my gut. Oh, there it is. Okay, you want to... Oh, I'm embarrassed. My gut is expanding for more reasons than one. Haven't been to the gym in a while. But you're breathing with your gut. That's your diaphragm. And when you do that, you can get a great deal more air into your lungs, and you will be more comfortable. Singers do this all the time. This is a typical technique that singers are taught. And if you've ever listened to, a mariachi band, and there's the singer, and this person goes in and hits that high note, and they hold it, and they hold it, and they hold it, and pretty soon you feel like you're going to pass out. That's because they're using diaphragmatic breathing. So try to get as much air into your lungs as you can, and use diaphragmatic breathing. Meditation breathing. Yes. Now, obviously, you're not going to sit in a yoga position and say Om. But if you're really nervous before you're ready to get up and give your speech, try to block everything out for just a moment and concentrate on your breathing. Now, if any of you do meditation, this is one of the first things you're taught to successfully meditate. And so it's you're still using your diaphragm. 1, 2, 3. And you do that a few times. It's very calming. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're getting very nervous, do this before you come up to speak. And I think you'll find that it works very, very well. Now there's one more, and this is the tension release. And I know my father used to tell me, shake it out, right out the end of your fingers. and that's a tension release. Just be careful. I've suggested this, where you get up and you take a couple of short breaths and just kind of shake it out, get that tension out. I've had people come up to the front of the class and do that in front of everyone. If you're going to do this, do it before you come up to class. Now, I'd been going to the gym faithfully until all the lockdown happened. My goal was to look like this guy. I ain't there yet. Maybe one of these days. So diaphragmatic breathing, meditative breathing or meditation breathing, and tension release breathing. So what else do I have in here? All right, other ways to, obviously make yourself comfortable. Choose your topic well, carefully. Pick something you like. And of course, in this class, every single presentation you do, you get to pick yourself. Now, I will ask you to send me your topic choice so that I know what you're doing. But rarely have I ever told someone, that might not work for this class. So you get to pick. That will reduce some of the anxiety. Be knowledgeable. I already mentioned this. Know more than you can possibly talk about, because then you will feel comfortable with the information. Start planning and preparing early. Yeah, procrastination. Anybody a procrastinator out there? That would be me. I hate waiting till the last minute. And I tell you what, procrastination is the nail in the coffin of public speaking. If you wait until the night before you have to give a speech to try to put it together, you're not going to be comfortable when you get up to present. And you probably, in all honesty, won't do a very good job. So make sure you get started early on your presentation. Once again, we have a different advantage and dynamic in this online class in that you will be able to prepare, and there's a window of opportunity for recording. So it won't be quite as much of an issue as the deadline in the classroom. Learn all you can about the audience. I've talked about that. Know your audience. And I'll be really coming back on this point in the next lecture or two. Know how you start and how you end your speech. Now, normally I would say, how many of you think the introduction is the most important part of the speech? And people will raise their hand. And I'll say, how about the conclusion? People will raise their hand. Well, I'll just tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it's the conclusion. How can you possibly know how to end the speech if you haven't worked it out ahead of time? You really need to know your conclusion. You need to have a good conclusion, and you need to be comfortable with it. Personally, obviously, the body of the speech, where the information is, that is the speech. But what are people going to remember? The last thing you say. So the conclusion is the most important part of the speech, as far as I'm concerned. Think about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It was almost 45 minutes long. The last 7 minutes, that's when he talked about his dream, and that's what everybody remembers. Now, if you find yourself being asked to give a speech, well, you don't have to dress like Daniel Craig there. I wish I could look like Daniel Craig. But make sure you dress appropriately. It depends on the occasion, but dress appropriately. You'll feel better, and you'll make a better impression on your audience. Don't wear a tattered T-shirt. Don't wear a T-shirt with lots of verbiage or imagery on it, because that's distracting. Keep your clothing fairly simple, and be comfortable. Some occasions you may want to dress. Guys might wear a jacket and a tie, and so on. But we live in a different world than we used to, and even before the lockdowns, we've become a lot more casual. But that doesn't mean be a slob. So, dress for the occasion, whatever the occasion may be. And then keep your notes and materials organized. I didn't do that once. I was the director of a project for Morehead State University before I came out here to Las Vegas. And we were building a major science center there, and I was the guy, and it was groundbreaking day, and I had to give the opening speech. And we were in a big auditorium. I've been in this place before, and I was down in the front row of the auditorium, and someone came out and they introduced me. And so I got up, and you know how the stages have the stairs going up on either side of the stage. So I go over there and I'm walking up the steps and I trip. Not only did I trip, but all my notes went across the stage. Of course, there's laughter in the audience. Now, I won't say what I thought. So I got up and I gathered up my papers, and I got to the podium, and it got worse. I had about 9 pages of notes, big type, but 9 pages of notes. You know what I'd forgotten to do? I didn't number the pages. So I had to stand there and reshuffle so that I could give my presentation. Never made that mistake again. So keep yourself organized. And if you're actually giving a speech somewhere, show up early. Don't show up at the last minute. So on the day of your speech, remember, calming breaths, diaphragmatic breathing. Try to be there early if you can. Warm up your voice. Do a little bit of talking beforehand, not too much. You don't want to wear your voice out. And make sure you know that the audio visual, if you need it, is going to work. Man, that's a real killer when the stuff doesn't work. And then during your speech, positive attitude, you need to make eye contact. And man, that's the weirdest thing about doing these lectures in front of my computer like this. Normally, I would be looking at all of you. I want to look for reactions. And if you don't look at your audience, they're going to think that you don't care. So make sure that you practice eye contact. I have some ideas, well, some of them may be goofy, about things you can do at home when you record your speech that might provide some eye contact. You know you're going to have some anxiety. It's going to happen. But channel that into a positive energy with that adrenaline rush and everything else that's happening. It's all right. And don't overthink this. Just get up and do it. If you worry about it, right up to the very moment you're up there, you will be horribly nervous. I've had any number of students tell me that the anxiety is worse after they're done. And you may have experienced this. I think we all have. So just be ready for it. It's going to happen. And if you know it's going to happen, then it's easier to manage. So focus on your audience and breathe. Slow down. Remember my 3 rules? Make sure you slow down. Rule number 3, slow down and breathe. People will wait for you. If you need to take a pause, if you need to take a little sip of water or consult your notes, people will wait. It's all right. So now we won't have question and answer. Unfortunately, I've already said this. Recognize that speech anxiety will happen, and you'll be amazed. You can get up there and you can do it. So there you go. Some ideas about how to overcome speech anxiety. Now, once again, I will post this PowerPoint into the files, and I will give you the appropriate reading for this. So you'll see that in an announcement shortly after I post the video. All right, take care and breathe, slow down. You'll feel so much better. Thanks for listening.